In today's episode of Solved Mysteries, we're going to be observing a sex trafficking case from Long Island, New York, known as the Long Island Sex Dungeon. It's been reported by the police that a man has kept more than 20 women inside his basement of his parents' house, where they were forced to provide sexual services to his clients. So, who is this despicable man that enforced all these women into partaking these sexual services? How did he convince them into his parents' basement? Also, how did he eventually get caught by the police? These are questions that we will be answering as we dive deep into the clues of this case. Let's get into this case now. In the year of 2014, a man from Long Island, New York, named Raymond Rodio III recruited young women in their 20s and largely in the Suffolk County from social media or through other methods. According to the Long Island police, Raymond would then give them drugs, often for free, so that they would develop a dependency on him, and then manipulate his victims into staying. He would then hold their addictions over their heads to force them to continue to work for him. After he set up prostitution dates for his victims on websites like Backpage.com and Craigslist.org, he would provide them with heroin or crack cocaine in order to impair their judgment. Not to mention also that he would take most or all of their money they made through their services. But what's more interesting about this case is that Raymond kept all of these women trapped inside the basement of his parents' home. District Attorney Tim Sinney has stated, quote, "He used the basement of his parents' home as a dungeon. While these women were in the house, they were not allowed to go anywhere except for the basement, which was outfitted with a lock on the door. Some of the victims were forced to stay in the basement for long periods of time, where there's no shower, no bathrooms, and they were forced to use a bucket as a toilet. And it was reported that there were 22 women who were trapped in that basement and provided these sexual services." Rodio brought the women and his clients into the basement through a typical unfinished garage, then went down the stairs into the windowless basement led to a room split in two by a hanging sheet. In one of the makeshift rooms, there was a bed covered with leopard print comforter, along with shelves that held bottles of lotion and suspected sex toys and a single bottle of chocolate syrup. According to Sinney's accounts, quote, "There were also seemingly family portraits on the wall, and from my view of one photograph, a pin-up board, and it looks like a prayer card with Jesus on it. I thought that was particularly ironic," end quote. The second half of the basement contained a washing machine and a dryer, as well as the bucket that the women had no choice but to use. Raymond's sex trafficking business ran for approximately 4 years until in 2018, Rodio was arrested by Suffolk County Police during a routine traffic stop. Officers who suspected the man's co-passenger could be a sex trafficking victim learned she had been forced into prostitution by Rodio since at least spring 2018. The traffic stop later led to the bust of Rodio's sex slavery operation. Prosecutors allege he turned his parents' windowless Sound Beach basement into a sex dungeon. Raymond Rodio III initially pleaded not guilty during a Thursday court appearance where he was held on a $1 million bail or a $2 million bond for 8 counts of sex trafficking and several more for promoting prostitution since as early as 2014. But the 48-year-old eventually pleaded guilty to 5 counts of sex trafficking, 2 counts of promoting prostitution, and the sale of a controlled substance on Tuesday, February 4, 2020. And he received a 9.5-year prison sentence on March 9 and is required to register as a sex offender upon release. Now you may be wondering, Raymond had 22 women in his parents' basement. How did his parents not know of his activities? Well, his father, Raymond Rodio Jr., gave Eyewitness News a tour of the basement to point out the clean and sanitary conditions. He said he had no idea about the alleged prostitution activity, but he knew his son was in trouble. His father stated, quote, "I knew something was going on. Drugs, that I know. I've tried to get him into so many drug programs," end quote. Neighbors also have mentioned that they have their own suspicions about Raymond. According to one of his neighbors, who didn't want to be identified, he or she stated, quote, "What I did see was cars parked on the street, as well as that one, off and on, and a girl would get out and walk down the block rather than parking at the house, which I thought was kind of strange," end quote. Sinney also said Rodio's parents lived in the home and were not immediately charged with any crimes, but noted that, quote, "There is some indication that they're aware something untoward was going on," end quote. Overall, the sex trafficking business that Raymond Rodio III managed in his parents' basement was very devastating. The mental torment and physical suffering that these 22 women went through must have been quite horrifying and miserable. But nonetheless, Raymond is now behind bars and serving a 9.5-year prison sentence, which is quite low for his actions. And because of that, we can now declare this case to be considered solved. Hey guys and gals, this is Mr. Shin Ramen, and I just want to thank you for making it this far. Did you enjoy the video? If so, it would be greatly appreciated if you can leave a like on this video and subscribe to this channel for more future content. Till next time, stay safe and stay scared.